Man insults Keanu Reeves on a first-class flight, instantly regrets it when the truth is revealed. The scent of fresh leather and expensive cologne filled the first-class cabin as passengers settled into their luxurious seats. Among them was Martin Langley, a hedge fund manager who prided himself on his wealth and status. He glanced around the cabin, mentally ranking the people around him based on their designer suits, luxury watches, and the brands of their carry-ons. As he adjusted his Rolex, he noticed the man taking the seat beside him. Martin's nose wrinkled slightly. The guy looked completely out of place. He wore a simple black hoodie, faded jeans, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. His long, dark hair was slightly messy, and he carried an old-looking backpack instead of a sleek briefcase. Martin sighed audibly, shaking his head. Probably some lucky lottery winner or a guy who blew his savings just to experience first class once in his life. The flight attendant arrived with a tray of drinks. Martin grabbed his usual glass of champagne while the man beside him simply asked for water. Trying to make conversation, Martin turned to him and smirked. "First time in first class?" The man raised an eyebrow. "No, not really." Martin chuckled. "Didn't think so. These days, anyone can buy a seat here if they save up long enough." He gestured to the man's hoodie and jeans. "But I gotta say, buddy, you really don't look like you belong here." The man gave a small smile, his eyes filled with something Martin couldn't quite place. Was it amusement or patience? "And what does someone who belongs here look like?" he asked, his voice calm. Martin smirked. "You know, tailored suits, expensive watches, polished shoes. People who understand class." The man simply nodded, as if Martin's words were just background noise. He looked out the window, unfazed by the remark. Martin took another sip of his champagne, confident that he had made his point. But then a flight attendant suddenly approached, her face lighting up in recognition. "Mr. Reeves, it's such a pleasure to have you on board again," she said warmly. "Would you like your usual meal selection?" Martin nearly choked on his drink. His eyes widened as he slowly turned to look at the man sitting next to him. "No way." Keanu Reeves smiled politely. "Water's fine for now. Thank you." Martin felt his stomach drop. Holy the Keanu Reeves, the legendary actor, the star of countless blockbuster films, the guy known for his generosity, humility, and kindness. And Martin had just spent the last 5 minutes insulting him. His mouth went dry. He scrambled for words. I didn't realize." Keanu turned to him, still as relaxed as ever. "Realize what?" Martin swallowed hard. "That you were, you." Keanu just chuckled, his expression soft. "Would it have made a difference?" Martin hesitated. The honest answer was yes. If he had recognized Keanu Reeves from the start, he would have treated him with the utmost respect. He wouldn't have judged his clothes or assumed he didn't belong. But now he realized how shallow that was. Keanu didn't need fancy suits or expensive watches. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He just was. "I guess I was being an ass," Martin admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I judged you without knowing anything about you." Keanu smiled. "Happens more often than you'd think." The rest of the flight, Martin sat in uncomfortable silence, reflecting on his own arrogance. He had spent his whole life believing that status and wealth defined a person's worth. But Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous, successful actors in the world, didn't seem to care about any of that. As the plane touched down, Martin gathered his things and turned to Keanu. "For what it's worth, I think I learned something today." Keanu nodded. "That's what life's about." Martin watched him walk off, still wearing that same simple hoodie, blending effortlessly into the crowd. For the first time in his life, Martin realized that true class wasn't about money. It was about character. Martin exited the plane in a daze, his expensive leather shoes clicking against the polished airport floor. His mind was still reeling from the conversation with Keanu Reeves. He had always prided himself on being the smartest person in the room, the wealthiest, the most important. But sitting next to Keanu had made him feel small, not because of Keanu's fame, but because of his own arrogance. As he made his way toward baggage claim, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his business partner. "Investors confirmed for tomorrow's meeting. Let's show them why we're the best." Martin stared at the words but felt an unusual lack of excitement. Normally, he would be eager to prove himself, to impress, to dominate. But now, the thought of showing off to investors suddenly felt meaningless. Lost in thought, he barely noticed the older woman struggling with her suitcase near the carousel. She was small, her arms trembling as she tried to lift the heavy bag onto her cart. People walked past without a second glance. A few hours ago, Martin wouldn't have cared either, but something in him had changed. Without thinking, he stepped forward. "Here, let me help." The woman looked up, surprised. "Oh, thank you, young man." Martin hoisted the suitcase onto the cart with ease. "There you go." She gave him a warm smile. "You remind me of my grandson. Not many people stop to help these days." Martin forced a small chuckle. "Yeah, I'm trying something new." As she walked away, Martin exhaled. It was such a small act, but for some reason it felt good. For years he had believed success meant power, that people were only worth as much as their bank accounts. But Keanu Reeves had effortlessly shattered that belief, just by existing, just by being kind without expecting anything in return. Martin didn't know if he could change overnight. But as he stepped into his private car, he knew one thing for certain. For the first time in his life, he wanted to try.